Today's guest on Adversity to Strength with me, Lee Freeman, is someone whose journey is as raw as it is inspiring. Alysha Lee is the author of Everything I Might Have Missed, a deeply personal memoir about surviving emotional abuse, spiritual trauma, and betrayal, and the long, non-linear path to healing. Her story begins at rock bottom but doesn't end there. Through years of therapy, faith, reconstruction, and self discovery, Alysha has rebuilt a life rooted in truth, boundaries, and belonging. She speaks openly about the toll of gaslighting, religious manipulation, and codependency, and the courageous work of reclaiming her voice. As a writer, survivor, and mental health advocate, Alysha brings powerful insight, empathy, and authenticity to conversations around trauma, identity, and recovery. I'm absolutely honored to welcome Alysha to the show. Alysha, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me here, Lee. I really appreciate the space that you've created for people to openly share their stories. So I'm so honored to be here, and I hope my story will inspire your listeners.
I'm sure it will, from what I've read and what we've spoken about. Take us back to the beginning. Tell me where your journey started for yourself there, Alysha.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I spent some years in an abusive relationship. And after I physically left, I realized that I was still carrying some of the emotional wounds with me. And for a long time, I didn't really know how to survive what I had gone through. I didn't know how to release some of the anger I was carrying. I let myself get lost in the grief. And it wasn't until I started the process of healing that I was able to experience the freedom that allowed me to move forward with my life.
So take us back to the beginning then, with the relationship then. What was going on there for you, especially like at the beginning when usually it's all going great?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a Christian home, and pretty much the idea of religion was inside this little box. And I believed that I had to check a bunch of boxes, and one of the boxes being to marry young and start a family pretty young. So I married someone within my own faith, and there were some red flags at the beginning, but when you're 19 and you feel like you're in love and you feel like you know better than everyone else around you, that you choose not to see them, and things spiraled out of control pretty quickly. Pretty fast, I realized that our whole relationship had been built on lies, and there was a lot of control and manipulation that happened as soon as I started asking those questions about some of the lies that I had been given. And that's when the control really happened. It got to the point where we were both in school at the time. We were going to college, a university, and come to find out my then husband at the time had been kicked out of school and didn't have a job and would just sit at home in our second bedroom that he created into an office, and wasn't really sure what was going on there all day, but he chose to just stay there and I would go to school. And I would meet up with my brother at the time, who was there at school, and we would see each other every Tuesday at our university. There was a devotional, and we would meet up. And he started realizing that I was acting differently, that I was becoming paranoid, and that things were just changing with my countenance, and started kind of questioning what was going on. And little by little, I told him what was happening, that the relationship was pretty bad and things were getting bad at home, and there's a lot of control going on. And eventually he told our parents what was happening, and they called me one afternoon just to talk and kind of check in, because they hadn't heard from me in a few weeks, and I was still pretty young and newly married. And I remember the phone ringing, and I answered it, and it was my mom. And I quietly walked out of our apartment to have just an honest conversation with her and kind of tell her a little bit what was going on and what was happening. As I was walking out the door, I hadn't realized, but my then husband was following me, and I started talking to my mom. And then for a split second, I turned around and I saw him, and I just remember seeing the fire in his eyes. And at that moment, he snatched the phone out of my hands and basically put some kind of controls on it so that he was the only one that could could contact me. And then eventually he did just get rid of it entirely. And that point on, he memorized my school schedule. And if I wasn't home by a certain time, like 5 minutes after class started was kind of my threshold. I knew that there would be ramifications. And so I just got super, super paranoid. Everywhere I went, I was looking over my shoulder, scared that I was doing the wrong thing, scared there was going to be ramifications. And I just kind of became a shell of a person at that point.
I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, how old were you at the time when you were actually going through this? Obviously, you got married at 19.
I think I was about 20 when things kind of started spiraling out of
So,
control.
so going back to the beginning, you said that there were red flags, but you ignored, and obviously everyone's done that. What were the red flags that you were ignoring at the time?
Yeah. So my friends and family would point out that he was pretty protective of me, was the word that they used, that he was always concerned about where I was, what I was doing, who I was with. And in my 19-year-old adolescent brain, to me, that was just, oh, that's just love, and he's protective of me. That's a good thing. It's a good thing for someone to be protective of me. But looking back and now that I see from an outsider's perspective, it was definitely more of an unhealthy obsession with a person and just wanting to have control over a person in a situation. There were a lot of hard conversations that before we got married that I felt like I was trying to have, because I just felt like if we're gonna get married, then these are some conversations we should have. And there's a lot of conversations he just never wanted to have. I knew that there was some stuff going on with his family. He had told me that his dad was addicted to narcotics and that his parents were kind of struggling with their relationship. And one of his brothers got in trouble with the law quite often and was kind of in and out of juvie. And there are just some things that were red flags. But when you're when you're young and in love and
Yeah.
you think that you can conquer the world, it was like, you know what? We can work through this. It's fine. We can work through this. But and not saying that people can't change, but there was just some conversations that he just refused to have, and we didn't really have a plan moving forward. It was like we'll just get married and then things will work itself out, and there was never like a set plan in place. I had tried to plan for going to school and getting my education, but come to find out, I mean, he got kicked out of school and wasn't excited about finding a job. So there was that as well.
How long into the marriage did you realize, do you know what, I'm in a lot of trouble here. This is not right.
Yeah. Well, actually it was my family and friends that were kind of the ones on the outside saying this is not okay. This is not how a marriage should be. I mean, you're only a few months into this marriage and this is already like going super downhill. This is going very poorly. So after that conversation with my mom, and I kind of stopped seeing my brother around campus because I was paranoid about what would happen. My husband made it pretty clear that he didn't like my family. He and my friends, he always used the word brainwashing, that my family and friends were brainwashing me and that they were the problem and that no one understood our relationship like we did. And, all the love bombing and, oh, I'm
Yeah.
working on things. We're working on things and I'm trying to get better and just give me time. Eventually, after no one had seen or heard from me for a few weeks. And after kind of that disturbing call with my mom, my parents sought some legal advice and realized that we were actually living in their condo at the time. They owned a condo and we weren't paying rent or anything. We weren't on a lease. So they kind of had a little bit of an upper hand in the fact that we were living in their property. So they sought some legal advice and realized that there was squatters rights essentially, so they couldn't entirely evict my husband, but they did come to our house one Saturday morning with a sheriff, a policeman, and they basically said, hey, we just need to talk to our daughter, like something is not right here, we just need to have a conversation with her by herself alone. And basically, at that point, I said, I think I need to come home for a little bit. I need to figure some stuff out. And in about 5 minutes, I packed my suitcase and I just took a few things and left everything else and went home. It was actually about 12 hours from home where I actually lived from the college. So I went home with my parents for a while and they got me a new phone, thankfully. And so I was able to have that. And I started some therapy there. And there was a lot more love bombing that happened and a lot more confusion that happened with trying to figure out if I stay in this relationship because there was a part of me that still felt like I still loved this person. But I also was starting to see that it was unhealthy and there were some red flags.
So going back to you're at school and you've got like a window to get back and you're struggling to kind of like cope there as well. And then he's just took your phone off of you. Is that the time that you thought I'm in real trouble here in this relationship? I'm in danger really. Was that the moment you think, or was it happening before?
Yeah, I think it was kind of one of those things where I was torn because I could see that this is an unhealthy relationship, that a normal person doesn't clock every second of your day and expect you home at a certain time every day and freak out if you're more than 5 minutes past your deadline and take your phone away and tell you that your family and friends are all the problem. So I could see that this was unhealthy, that this wasn't okay. But I think there was also a part of me that was naive, thinking, oh, maybe we can still save this marriage. And I married this person because I loved him. So I, should work this through. And things actually got worse before they got better. Yeah.
How would, so what happened? Obviously, how would it getting worse? So
Yeah.
you've left the condo. Where was your husband at the time when you were packing your suitcase?
Yeah, so he was basically just with the sheriff or the policeman. He was waiting outside the apartment or our condo at the time with the policeman. Like I said, I probably got about 5 minutes to get my things and leave. I basically told him I'm not sure what's gonna happen. I just need some time to think this through and see if I'm gonna come back to school. I ended up kind of dropping out of all my classes for that semester. Or some of my teachers, because of the circumstance, they let me kind of finish my classes online. But it was kind of the middle of the semester that I just felt like I needed to get out of there and just have some space to think about things.
What was he saying when you're walking out? He's with the sheriff, so obviously there's not a lot he can do, and you've got your suitcase. You just probably want him to get in your parents' car. What was he saying to you?
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely on his best behavior. He was like, I understand, I love you. I hope you come back. I think we can work this out. All the things that you'd expect a person to say, which made the whole thing even more confusing. And then once I got back home to Colorado, it was just like pages and pages of emails and text messages about how much I love you and all these like, happy memories that we'd had together and like things about our future and all the things that you would want a person to say or do. He was very, very good at just knowing the right things to say at the right time. And I think that's why it made it even more confusing. And then, I mean, this is where I kind of hit rock bottom at this point is I had spent a few weeks trying to figure out what I wanted to do and decided that I wasn't quite ready to go back and that I needed some more time. And I told him that I really wanted to continue my education and keep pushing forward, and that I was going to enroll in another college. And, of course, he's still on his best behavior and trying to make that impression. And okay, I want what's best for you. And I hope eventually you'll make your way back to me, but I understand and I love you and yada yada. And then he told me, "Hey, I want to see you before you go off to this other university, and I think you owe it to me at least one more time to have a last conversation with you and kind of go our separate ways for the time being, and hopefully we make our way back together, but if not, I understand. And I felt like he had been, changed a little bit and turned a new leaf. And so he said he was going to be in town. He made the drive, which was a long drive. I agreed. I agreed to see him for lunch. And I felt like I owed it to a person that I had married and loved to have one final send off. And so I left the house and I told my parents that I was meeting up with one of my friends, one of my best friends from high school, and I met him where he told me to meet him, and we got in the same car and we were supposed to go to lunch. And well, to make a long story short, we never ended up going to lunch. Once I was in his car, he took my phone again and proceeded to tell me I was making a huge mistake and that he was saving me, that he was fighting for his wife. And again, all of my friends and family were brainwashing me and everyone was against us and we have to fight for ourselves, and proceeded to take me across state borders without my consent. And I don't know if you know, but that's an abduction. Taking a person across state borders without their consent is abducting
What's,
a person.
what's going through your mind? When did you realise you've got in the car? I'm guessing he's all super nice, and then
Yeah.
I guess it just changed. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was freaking out obviously because I had a few weeks of healing. I'd made peace with my decision to kind of still remain separate. I had been accepted into another university that I was going to try for a semester, and so yeah, I'm freaking out. But there's also a part of me that was just like, okay, I guess this is what I deserve. Like I guess I got myself into this. I married him and there was a ton of red flags. I shouldn't have done that. And I left and then I fell right into his traps again. And so I think there was a part of me that was just defeated and was like, all right, this is my life. I guess I deserve this. So I'm just going to have to make peace with it.
So, how many hours driving were you in this car for? Because it's long distance from the condo to your parents.
Yeah, it was. So we actually stopped in Utah. So I think it was probably about 8 to 10 hours we were in the car. So my parents live in Colorado, and he took me to Utah to stay with some of his family members that he knew and he'd fed them this whole story again, that my family was crazy, that everyone was against us, that he was fighting for his wife, so they were all on his side and thinking that we're the crazy ones and that he basically put it in their minds that he was saving me and that this whole thing, he's manipulating them too. So it was about 8 to 10 hours. We stopped in Utah, and the goal was he wanted to take me all the way to California because that's where he was originally from. And his grandpa lived on this ranch, and that was the goal, to go to Northern California and live on this ranch basically for the rest of our life. We never actually made it to California. Again, he doesn't have a job, and so money is kind of an issue. And so we're in Utah for about a month or so.
What's your parents thinking now? Because they must have realised what's happened.
Yeah. So on the drive up there, he basically called like a mutual friend and told him, "Hey, she changed her mind. This is all lies, obviously, but she changed her mind. We're working on our marriage. She realized that everyone else, her parents and family and friends are getting in the way of the relationship, and we decided that we want to work on the relationship. And so she's coming with me and we're basically just going to work this out, and we don't need any interference from anyone else at this time." And so they're fed this story. And I mean, talking to my mom after the fact, I mean, she didn't sleep for like a month. And but I'm a legal adult and he's legally my husband, and so there wasn't a ton more that they felt like they could do. They're getting fed lies that this was my decision to leave and that I didn't want any contact or communication with them. So they're kind of just in limbo, waiting to see how this plays out.
Nobody go to the police.
Not at the time, because they were told that this was my decision. I think legally the law said if she's an adult and that's her decision, then she's got to be the one to come forward. I'm not sure exactly how that conversation went, but I know like legality is because I was an adult and I was married, that they thought it was my decision and there wasn't much they could do at that point.
What are you thinking? You turn up in Utah,
Yeah.
and you're there for a month. What are you thinking?
Yeah,
How am I
I
going to get out
basically
of this? Or did you resigned yourself to everything for the moment?
Yeah, for a long time, I did kind of resign myself. I'm basically just blaming myself for every decision that I ever made up to this point. And again, I'm just feeling like this is what I deserve, and this is the life that I'm gonna live. So I might as well just submit myself. And I was miserable. I couldn't go outside without permission. I couldn't go anywhere without him. So I was basically just a shell of a person, and I was supposed to be in school, and obviously I wasn't doing that. I couldn't get a job because I couldn't leave the house without him because I was a flight risk apparently. And so I just kind of sat there in this tiny little apartment with his other family member, and felt like I was just kind of rotting away.
Surely they must have realised something's not right here.
You would think, but he was pretty good at twisting things and making it seem like everyone else was the problem. I mean, your picture perfect definition of a narcissist where he's never the victim, or he's always the victim and
Always
everyone
the
else is,
victim. Yeah.
yeah, he fed everyone just like grand lies that this is only a stopping point. We're only going to be here for a short time, and then we're going to move out to California and start this whole business, and I'm going to make $1 million, and we're going to live this happy life, and we got to get away from her family and her friends and everyone. And I also think, I mean, that people were scared of him a little bit. I mean, he was kind of a big guy, tall and pretty like muscular guy. And I think people were just scared to confront him. And he did obviously have some anger issues. And I just felt like no one wanted to mess with that. His family member, I think, just kind of fed into the lies and the manipulation that this is them working on their marriage, and this is what they got to do to be their own people and get away from all this outside influence.
The thing is, you can't go outside the house. You're obviously really miserable. It would have been noticeable there as well. You would
Mhm.
think somebody would have gone, "Are you okay? Are you sure this is what you want?" Whisper something in your ear.
Yeah. You would think that he had his own little circle of friends when we moved there. He started making his own little circle of friends and kind of just became his little posse. And um yeah, again, just feeding everyone lies. And I mean, I hardly ever left the house. I don't even really know if anyone realized I was there. I mean, he would leave the house without me, but I kind of was just under house arrest for a long time.
What happened after the month then? You said you stayed in Utah for a month.
Yeah, so I just remember waking up one morning and, feeling so defeated for such a long time, and just spiraling out of control that this is my life now, and there's nothing else left for me. And I had lots of goals and ambitions, but I'm just going to have to put those aside because this is my life and this is the life that God wants for me. And then I remember when I thought that, there was a moment where I just felt this burning in my soul that I was like, no, this isn't the life that I was supposed to live. And if there is a God, this isn't the life he would want for me. Why would anyone want this life for another person? This is a actual living hell. And I just remember having this sense of courage that one way or another that I was going to get out. And I didn't have a phone and there there was a computer, there was his computer, but I wasn't really allowed on it. I didn't know the password. And I just remember there was a time when he and his family member both left at the same time, and I was just there watching daytime television. And was like, I'm gonna do something. I have to do something. And I knew that I had a friend, one of my good friends from high school, that she had a sister that lived in Utah and I thought in the area. And he left and I couldn't find my phone, and I don't think it would have worked anyway, but his laptop was there. And so I opened the laptop and I started trying to find the password, and I almost got to the point where it locked me out. But I knew him pretty well, and we'd been married, and I'd known him for a little bit before that. And I finally was able to miraculously, I think it was a God thing, figure out the password and got into the laptop. And from then on, I was able to log into Facebook and sent a message to my friend from high school and let her know where I was. And she immediately answered and was freaking out. She's like, "Oh my gosh, girl, where have you been? Like, I'm surprised you're still alive. Like, what is going on? Where are you?" And so I gave her a brief story, and I asked her if her sister was still in the area, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, yes, she is." And she immediately called her sister, who messaged me, and we were able to coordinate. Her sister basically became my rescue angel. And I was literally shaking when she got to me, and I was still paranoid, looking over my shoulder, at this point, feeling like he's just gonna pop out any moment, because that's just what he did, or that's what he had done in the past. And then she called my parents, who it was hard having that conversation, because I was like, I feel like they're just going to completely disown me at this point. They've already rescued me once, and then I left, and that was stupid. And anyway, they're wonderful people, and they were like in tears, and they booked the next flight from Utah, the very next flight back to Denver, Colorado. And then they welcomed me with open arms. And I wasn't expecting that, because I felt like they had, betrayed them at that point. But they were like, "I'm here for you. Let's work this out." And that's kind of where the healing really began.
So just before you're on like Facebook, and
Mhm.
you then obviously contacted her sister. Did she just like, you give her the address, she come and picked you up, and you run into the car and drove off?
Yeah. So, well, the car, this is kind of a little bit of a backstory. The car that
Sure.
we drove to Utah was actually my car. And my husband, the reason that he left, my then husband, the reason that he left the apartment was because his car was parked still in Colorado. And he had this truck. It was kind of a beater truck, and he parked it in Colorado. And then he asked if we could, going back to when he wanted to go to lunch with us, with me, he asked if we could take my car and he could drive my car to lunch, because his car, for whatever, it just wasn't a very good car. So my car was actually there. And so I ended up digging, I basically rummaged that whole apartment to find my keys, because I knew they were there. He had to leave the apartment because his car was about to get towed. He had to take his family member with him, because obviously he needed someone to drive him back to Colorado. So he was gone for a couple days. I think this is why I was able to do this. Yeah, he had to drive his car with his family member back to Colorado before his car was getting towed. Had been there for about a month, just in this Wendy's parking lot. And so as soon as I got a hold of my friend's sister, she messaged me on Facebook. I basically ramshackled that entire apartment, and thank God the keys were still there, which is another miracle. I'm sure she probably would have came to get me, but because I had the keys to my car, was able to, the old map quest, I was able to write down the instructions. And I was terrified that I would get lost, because I didn't have a phone. I just basically had to write down instructions on a piece of paper, and I was able to get there miraculously again. This is all just a God thing. And so I pulled into her house basically, and I was shaking. And I just remember sitting on her front porch shaking. And she put her arm around me and she said, "I know it's really hard right now, but it won't be like this forever. Things will get better." And I was able to leave my car at her house, and kind of one of my parents drove up and and grabbed it a few weeks later. Obviously, I didn't go with them, but I was able to get my car back to Colorado eventually.
That's great. You got your car back. More importantly, you were back
Yeah.
safe with your family. What happened next? When did your husband realize that you'd escaped?
Yeah. I mean, as soon as he got back from his trip, he realized that I was gone. He, at that point, kind of, I think that was probably his trump card. And at that point, I mean, we 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 went to the courthouse immediately. We got a restraining order. There was a restraining order filed against him, and there was a huge court proceeding. I think at that point he kind of knew that there wasn't really any more ammo that he could use against me, that I wasn't coming back. We filed for divorce immediately because I had a restraining order. I mean, everything was granted. Colorado's a no-fault state, so it's really easy to get a divorce, and he didn't even have to be there for any of it. So we kind of started that process. And as soon as we started that, I mean, he's still trying to manipulate me, but at this point he's just angry. And a lot of his stuff, he went from love bombing to just, you're a terrible person, no one's ever gonna want you, yada yada. So it kind of, his tone definitely changed. It was kind of, his true colors came out once he knew
Oh, definitely.
that there was nothing he could do.
Did the police get involved even after that?
They got involved just because of the abduction,
Yeah.
essentially, but then the court took it from there, granted the restraining order, and they actually the police did file a warrant out for his arrest. So if he ever did, it's only, for the state of Colorado. So, but if he ever did come to Colorado, they had a warrant out for his arrest, so he could be arrested in the state of Colorado.
So they're not worried about like doing a nationwide manhunt for him, more of like a protection to you. If he comes into Colorado and he gets picked up, he'll be arrested and then might face.
Yeah, that was the route that they went, is just protection within the state of Colorado.
And what happened after that with him? So you've got divorce from him there. Did you finally get rid of him? Did you have to block him, or was he not allowed to contact you?
Yeah. So basically, I re-enrolled in the college that I was supposed to go to for that semester that we were going to be separated, and I got accepted again, and I ended up going there. And yeah, at this point we're not really talking. I mean, he still does have my phone number, so he could still technically text me, but I do think I blocked him for a while, and basically just try to move on with my life. I mean, I'm going to a bunch of therapy at this point.
Yeah.
My parents took me to therapy, and the therapist had me fill out this questionnaire, and it's basically, how mentally sound are you? And there's a certain threshold that you have to get to be a normal, healthy person. And let's just say my numbers were completely off the charts, in the worst way possible. So we had a lot of work to do. So I started therapy and kind of just started to unravel what had happened. And I was so young when all this happened. It kind of rewired my brain a little bit. And
Cool.
obviously there's huge trust issues, and I'm still just paranoid and fighting off demons and feeling just completely insecure about everything in my life. And I went on a bit of a downward spiral myself, finding unhealthy ways to cope and friends that weren't the best influence. But I felt like I just needed to feel something other than the numbness that I had been feeling for so long. And so I did spiral a little bit on my
It's
own.
not surprising. Yeah, it's not surprising, really. And when
Yeah.
was the last time you had any contact from him? How long ago was that?
Let's see. Probably like about 15 years ago. Yeah.
15 years ago. So it's very unlikely you ever hear from him again. I mean, who knows where he's ended up with his life there, because it didn't sound like it was a great one. Nothing's going to change from him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because we still have couple mutual friends. One of my really good friends from college, she's still friends with him on Facebook. I'm not even on Facebook anymore, but she says she just keeps him there to keep tabs on him. And for a long time I was like, I don't even know if he's alive, because a person with that trajectory, Yeah. And apparently he is still alive and kicking, but I mean basically just the same, he's in the same spot that he was 20 years ago, just kind of mooching off people, doesn't have a steady job, manipulating people to get what he wants. I mean, like you said, people like that don't really change or progress. Yeah.
Not narcissists.
Yeah.
It just doesn't tend to ever happen. And with yourself, so you qualified for your what you were studying at a university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I graduated, my undergrad was political science. So I thought for a while I wanted to go to law school, but I started studying for the LSAT and realized it was kind of tricky. So I switched to business school instead. So I ended up getting a business degree, which is kind of ironic considering that, he was trying to start his $1 million business and should have been a multimillionaire by now. So it just kind of ironic.
There's always irony
Yeah.
when you got somebody that's narcissistic there as well. When did you decide, and what made you decide to write your book about what happened?
Yeah. So I started, all of this took place between like 2008 2011 was kind of the time frame when all this happened. And in 2019, I mean, obviously I'd gone through therapy and done a lot of different like breath work and yoga and all kinds of things for healing. And I think, I am a believer and I feel like God kind of helped me heal ultimately from this whole experience, but all those tools were helpful as well. And in 2019, towards the end of 2019, I just kind of sat down to write. It was kind of a cathartic, therapeutic
Yeah.
way. I felt like I'd healed from it, but I also felt like there's a lot of things I still hadn't processed in a way that why did this happen? And how did this happen? And how did my life go from, being the straight A high school student to having a restraining order and this whole thing? And so I just sat down to write my story. And I have 3 daughters right now. And obviously, I pray that they'll never, ever have to experience
Yeah.
anything like that. And I felt like it was just important to share my story. And it just started off as a therapeutic process. Then I just kept writing and writing. And as I was writing, I was unraveling a lot more pieces of myself and making meaning out of some things that had happened. And I felt like I was being called not to only share my story, but to offer hope to people that might be going through something similar. I think something like this for a long time has been taboo and people don't want to talk about it or
Yeah.
people don't want to share their story. And it's amazing when I finally did officially publish my story that I've been receiving so many messages from people like, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing your story. My story doesn't align perfectly, but I've gone through something similar, or I know someone that's gone through something similar. And I just feel like that freedom, it was freedom for me to share my story, but also I feel like it gives validation and it gives freedom to other people to open up and share their story and realize that they're not alone and that they could be drowning right now, but there's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
This is the whole point of the podcast. Because I actually spoke to some of my own clients when I said I'm thinking of doing a podcast when I was launching my brand, and I've said to them, because they were really keen to find out what I was thinking, and they all said the same, that they want to listen to a story that they can relate to, also
Hmm.
one that's going to inspire them. So that's the whole
Yeah.
point of this podcast there, and
Yeah.
yours is exactly that there as well, because you got to a point where you'd almost resigned yourself to that's it. And so many people feel like they're going to give up hope, there's no way out. But then you've shown that it's possible, and then you've gone on, worked unbelievably hard on yourself, probably forever, but obviously always
Yeah.
going in the right direction there as well, even with your up and down times, which is always going to happen there as well. And you've gone on to survive there as well, which makes such a difference to people out there that might be struggling. So I think it's great. And just finally, where's everything for you now in life? Where do you feel you are with everything?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's when you realize that you truly have healed from something is when you can talk about it and not get worked up or emotional about it. And I've been able to share my story so many times with so many different people and share my book and just talk to people face to face. And I can talk about it and I can share my experience and not get worked up about it because I know I have healed and I don't have to worry about what what he's doing because I'm completely healed and I'm content with my life. And I'm remarried now. I've been for the past 10 years. Yeah, I got married in 2014 and now I have three little girls and I'm writing books and I'm traveling the world and I'm just trying to be the best version of myself. And that's all I can focus on. I can't focus on what anyone else is doing and I can't dwell on what they've done or where they're going. I can just focus on myself and my family and my little circle of influence.
I think it's great. And the best part is just
Yeah.
how you've changed that level of adversity and what you went through, dealt with it in the best way possible, all the different things that you were doing along with therapy to meet somebody that you can trust enough, which would have been a big, thing for you to, obstacle for you to overcome, and then to go on, have a settled family, and then do the things that you want to do and actually tell people your story. I think it's an amazing story. All of your information will be in the description of the episode there as well. Alysha, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling us your story. Thank you so much.
Lee, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Pleasure having you on. Thank you.